welcome, true believers, to the To Infinity podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Rashad,
I'm another host, Robert.
I'm Zach.
and we are here to talk about Captain America: The First Avenger. So, in this, I guess, streak of movies that I was a little sour on when I originally watched it, and then going back and watching Captain America: The First Avenger again, I gotta say it's better the second time around. But I still do have some of the issues that I originally had with this movie, and I'm kind of looking forward to talking about it. So, what are you guys' I guess, initial thoughts about watching the movie again for the second/third time around?
I'll go ahead and get out of the way early. The one thing I dislike about this movie, and it's the name.
Why is that?
Because technically it's incorrect, right? He's the first Avenger. No, he's not. Not really. Not in the time. Like, if Avenger just means anybody that is eventually in the team, Thor is definitely the first Avenger, age-wise, right? Because they age like the Asgardians age differently, and that's it's pedantic, but
Captain America was the first one who accepted Nick Fury's invitation.
Well, okay, but by that definition, then yes, but they don't necessarily spell that out. It's implied, and I don't know. It didn't work for me.
The name doesn't really make any sense in the context of this movie because there's nothing about avenging or the Avengers in this movie. The reason they named it that was because this was the last movie they were doing before the Avengers, and they wanted to get some hype for it. So, or at least that's what
that is true.
Fair enough. And like I said, it's the only thing I don't like about this movie because I like this movie a lot. It's my favorite, I think, of all of Phase 1.
I liked this movie more than I remembered it. Like we said with Thor before, I think like maybe part of the reason why this movie didn't sit as well with me the first time around was because I was so sick of origin stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I still kind of there's some things about this movie I didn't really like, but I liked it a lot more this time around. So
yeah, it's good. Like I don't know if it was. I was never a big fan of Captain America growing up, like the comics.
Shut your mouth.
And I don't know. Do what?
I said, shut your mouth. I love Captain America. I'm a huge Captain America fan.
One of the things, like, I just like I thought he was pretty vanilla. He's a guy with a shield who's like strong and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I never gave enough credit to a lot of what's important about him is his origin. Before he becomes Cap, and so seeing it this way, like on film for the first time, the way they did this, I actually I like that a lot about him a lot more, and maybe it's just because the older you get, the more respect you have for that sort of thing. I don't know what it was, but I like it a lot better than I did as a child. I makes me believe in a world where I would like to have Captain America around.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that characters like Captain America or Superman are supposed to do. Like, yes, they're the person that's always good, the moral compass that never bends and never breaks. But Captain America's that guy that you want to strive to be, and that's what I feel like superheroes in general are kind of supposed to do. Granted, that's kind of like the childlike wonderment of it. When I was reading and watching, like comic book cartoons and reading some comic books when I was a child, it's like I want to be a Captain America. I want to be a Superman or Spider-Man because it's like I want to be the guy that saves the day, the guy who does the right thing. And that was the fun thing about Captain America because he was always the guy that had to do the right thing in some of the worst times, like during World War II. And seeing how they portrayed in a movie where this is one of the things that I really like that I feel like the movie hit home is the propaganda aspect of it. Like, he wants to be a soldier, even at the beginning of the movie when he's small, scrawny Steve Rogers. And he's like, there's a bunch of bad men doing terrible things to people, and I want to do my part to try to stop it. And everyone's kicking him and beating his ass and beating him down and telling him that he can't do it. He's not strong enough. He's not big enough. He's not good enough. And he's just so defiant in the face of that adversity. It's really inspiring. And I feel like that's something that a lot of superheroes are missing nowadays, is that inspirational message, I guess. I feel like, heroes should stand kind of above regular people in a sense that they should be the ones that are kind of the goal to aspire to,
Yeah, they're supposed to be indicative of our better angels. The all embody all of the best qualities that every person, well, I say every person, most people would want to aspire to.
Yeah, I think Rashad, you mentioned this is what characters like Captain America and Superman are supposed to be. I think it's all right. So how we had my theory of comic book villainy in the Hulk podcast. I think I've got another thing where like every time somebody creates like a universe of superheroes, I mean, there's obviously exceptions, but like one of the standards for creating a universe of superheroes is always the Boy Scout patriotic symbol kind of hero, which is what Superman is in DC and Captain America is in Marvel. But I could write like an essay on why I think Captain America is actually a stronger character, not like in terms of like physical strength, but like just a better character than Superman.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
okay, give us a little bit of your thesis.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, Captain America is like just more well defined. His character is actually like what the kind of person he is, the kind of actions he would take in any given situation are pretty well defined over the course of the years that he's been written. Whereas Superman tends to shift around in terms of character dramatically depending on what the writers want him to do at any particular moment. And also, I think it's important that Captain America is in a lot of ways one of the weaker members of the Avengers. I mean, he's stronger and faster and much more capable than a regular person, but he doesn't have the same kind of power that Thor has. And yet, Captain America is pretty much always seen as the leader, and it's because for one thing, he's the only one who actually has like training in how to be a leader. You know, he was in the military. He had like a real like military career, but then at the same time his character is so much more approachable and like relatable because he's not Superman, because he doesn't have like real godlike powers. He represents, and in fact I think like the symbolism behind Captain America is just that he represents the best of us. And it's a lot more difficult to say that with Superman because nobody can really be Superman, you know.
That is true.
Actually, if I'm gonna get really into it and like write a thesis about it, here's what I would say is that in a way, Superman and Captain America both reflect different American ideals. Superman is an immigrant, but he's never really like one of us. But the thing is, he becomes the best of us by sort of accepting his new homeland and just like rising to be the best person he can be and using, you know, what he has and the advantages he has to help the world. But there's always sort of that disconnect between Superman and everybody else. Whereas with Captain America, he represents another kind of American ideal, because the idea behind Captain America is if you take a regular guy who doesn't have anything going for him and you give him an opportunity and you give him a chance, he can be the best out of all of us, which is what Captain America represents as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and they I think they address it really well in the scene he has with Dr. Erskine talking about. He said, "No matter what, stay the good man that you are inside. You know, even if you are end up being faster and stronger and everything like that." Like the thing that was important was his moral character, because he was willing to lay down his life to protect things that he believed in, regardless of his ability to actually like make a difference as a soldier. And they handle it really well. Like that scene with them in the barracks, about to share a drink and then not sharing a drink is one of the best parts of the movie, I think.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
Also because there's just that bit of comedy where he's like, "No, you can't. You're having a procedure. I'll just drink it all."
You know, Erskine's character was barely in the movie. He was only in there for like 10 minutes, but they defined his character very well in the short time he was in there.
Yeah, like him giving kind of the Red Skull origin story and how he ties into the military of Hydra, and pretty much seeing that played out. Like you totally understand like what he was going through, because I mean, granted, I'm not sure how everybody else's schooling was, but did a lot of reading about World War II. You know, did a lot of research, did a lot of reports, and you know, you just know how bad that war was. So you kind of get a feel, and they do a really good job of setting up the world in that like 1940s time frame. So you get like it's dark, it's messed up. Like what Hydra's doing, what they're doing over in Germany is really, really bad. And one thing I really love is alternate history stuff, and I really, really enjoy the fact that, you know, like 1940s Germany has like Gauss rifles and all this crazy stuff, and like America's like, we're outclassed. You know, they have all these crazy scientists. What are we going to do? And they're like building all this crazy shit, and then, you know, we just need this one guy to try to like rally everybody together to stop this like overwhelming threat. I really like that story.
And it's great because you talked earlier about how like the propagandistic nature of the film, like it's like they lean into him being this figure, and it's funny because at the very start when he gets into the super soldier program, the whole goal is to make a whole army of him, and then they only get the one. But it turns out, even though the propaganda about him, like Americans they're strong and we're tough and we fight for freedom, we didn't actually need the whole army. And so the propaganda in a way became true. Like they had just the one guy, but that one guy, because he was a good American, was enough.
Yeah. And I really like that. I like the fact that it's just like, you didn't need an army. You just needed one man to stand up for what was right. And then everybody else stood up with him. And that was enough. It wasn't a bunch of like superhumans who could fly and shoot lasers. It was just a bunch of men trying to do the right thing. Yeah, and they prevailed in the end.
He stands up, and then people stand up behind him, and people stand up behind them, and they just get it done.
And that's what makes this country great.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, we joke, but yeah, it's the
I love
it's
how,
the dream, it's the ideal.
Yeah, I love how this movie really leaned into like people in the 1940s really were the greatest generation. You guys have heard that before, right? The greatest the phrase "greatest generation" for people from the 1940s. Like it's a small thing, but I kind of thought like when Captain America, right after he gets turned into Captain America, and he's chasing that Nazi spy through the streets of Brooklyn or whatever, and the Nazi guy throws the little kid in the water, and Captain America tries to stop him, but the kid's like, "No, don't worry about me. I can swim. Go get him." And I'm like,
that was awesome.
And I was like, that truly is the greatest generation.
Yeah, even when he's doing that chase scene, and he falls into that dress shop and like blows for the whole window. He's so polite about it. He goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and then just keeps on like from top to bottom, no matter what he's doing, he's like the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Also, just as an aside, the guy that plays the Hydra spy, I don't know if you know who that actor is. It's Richard Armitage, and I don't know that he's done anything else in the Marvel universe, but he played Thor. I mean, no, Thorin in the Hobbit movies.
Oh, cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's funny he has such like a little bit role.
Oh yeah, like because he's a huge British television star. Oh. He was like the lead on the show called MI5 for a long time.
Hey, speaking of actors that you weren't expecting to see but like kind of recognized, did you guys notice that Natalie Dormer was in there?
Yep. Marjorie Tyrell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is building up my theory, man. Thor had a bunch of White Walkers. And now they got the princess.
This is going to be your like fan theory. Is you're going to connect the Game of Thrones universe and the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I got the pins and the string already on the cork board.
You just need some days and days and days of no sleep and several pots of coffee, and you'll get there.
Yes.
And then he was all apologizing about kissing Natalie Dormer, and I was like, no, man.
Well, to defend him, she kissed him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
She was forceful.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry about that aside. I just thought it was an interesting small role for that actor to have.
Oh, no. I mean, it's cool seeing all this, like, the Easter eggs and, like, little cameo roles that are in there. I'm not, like, a big film buff, so I wouldn't notice most of this stuff, so bringing it up is pretty cool.
Well, I mean, I did watch it twice this week, so... I was trying to pay attention to smaller stuff.
Nice.
And I also did like that. I guess they could have picked any color that they wanted to for the Super Soldier Serum because color didn't matter. But in the movie, it's the same color as the energy of the Tesseract, and so it was like pitting the two against one another in a way that I found interesting. Because,
yep.
But yeah, I like that a lot. It's a small thing, but it worked for me.
So. I guess, we talked a lot about Captain America. I guess we should talk a little bit about his foil, which is one of my major issues with the movie, the Red Skull. So in this movie, we talked about how, they kind of give his origin story where he was injected with a imperfect version of the Super Soldier Serum.
Right.
Which gave him the strength and everything that Captain America has, but it also deformed his face. And then you get the actor's name, Agent
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving. You get old Hugo Weaving, acting around. He's great. Like, I think he's amazing. They did a really, really good job when they finally, because they tease it throughout the movie. Whereas, like, the painter's, like, doing I guess, like a portrait of him. And he's in the shadows, and the guy's, like, all freaking out, like, oh my God, this dude's face is so red. And then, they reveal it later when Cap punches him in the face. but it's kind of like a cool homage to like that old like 1960s cover of him punching Hitler in the face.
They totally did him punching Hitler in this too, and I love that.
Apparently over 200 times, because that was a great line. It was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" He was like, "I punched Hitler out like 200 times."
What? Excuse me.
But yeah, so Hugo Weaving was really good, but they just didn't give the Red Skull anything to do.
Yeah, you know, like, what we were talking about with Iron Man 2, where like I never felt in Iron Man 2 that those villains were really a threat to Iron Man. I never really felt like the Red Skull was that much of a threat in this. They keep talking about it and like building it up, but like he never really seemed to do a whole lot.
Go ahead.
No, well, I don't know. I think he's not supposed to be a huge personal threat. Part of the threat that he brings is his like he has his own army and he's got this jet and all these like it's not just him, like it's his organization, which pointedly survives him and goes on to cause trouble for Cap, decades later. So
actually, that's something else I want to talk about too with Zola. I mean, first of all, Red Skull's whole thing depended on Zola, and the Red Skull didn't even care about him. He treated him like shit, but everything was because of Zola. And something else too is, I mean, when we get to the Winter Soldier, Zola, spoilers, is the major threat in that because he's lived all this time by putting his consciousness into a computer. And I was like, why is it that he got so much like more badass when he turned himself into a computer? Like, because he's such a wimp in this movie.
Because he don't have this weak, fleshy body.
Yeah, that's the exact reason. He had gotten rid of the thing that held him back, which was his squishy bits. The thing I don't know. It's just Red Skull is by himself not that scary. The thing that's scary is he has this whole thing that powerful enough organization that he could challenge even the Third Reich from within. So that's what makes him compelling to me. Yeah, he's not great on his own. I mean, he could stand toe to toe and go rounds with Cap, but that's not his true power.
Yeah, and I feel like there is a story to be told because the whole thing with Cap was like, I never back down from a fight. I never run away because if you start running away, you keep running. And throughout this entire movie, Red Skull just runs away from every fight, essentially. Mm-hmm. And Cap even says it, like when Zola, when they do the punch and he kind of reveals his face a little bit, you see it under his skin, and then they separate the bridge that they're on. Cap says, "Oh, so you're gonna run?"
Yeah.
And he just stands. He's in the elevator. So I feel like that's kind of what they're doing, like showing, I guess, the content of their character, where it's like Captain America's going to do everything in his power to stop the bad guy, even putting his own body on the line.
Right.
Whereas Red Skull is just like, oh, I'm just in it for myself and anything's disposable. Because I thought it was kind of ridiculous. Like, one man snuck, granted, he's a super soldier, but he snuck into this facility. He rescued a bunch of people. And he was about to escape. He was by himself. And then the first thing Red Skull does is blow up the whole facility. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You wouldn't wait or something? He was like, as soon as he saw him walk into the facility, he just started turning knobs and blowing up everything. And I was like, okay.
I can totally understand why Hitler wanted to get rid of the Red Skull because this guy has no regard for resources. Like,
he keeps killing his own men.
Yeah, and it's actually I have here in my notes that I took when I was watching the movie, like, where is Red Skull getting all this stuff from? I mean, I know that he had the energy from the Tesseract to help make those like weapons and stuff, but that's a lot of concrete to make that building. And,
oh yeah,
and all this other stuff. Like, where's he getting the money from? Hitler cut him off.
Yeah, and it's particularly egregious because when those members of the Reichstag show up to talk about why he hasn't given anything to the Fuhrer, and he goes on this rant about how he's like, well, he can't keep his troops fed and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, dude, but you're blowing up factories full of material that and just running away. Like, you're no better at resource management than he is.
You're a shitty general, Red Skull.
And I mean, that's kind of played out in this movie because he's more or less taken down essentially by one man, and he has all the resources and all the power behind him, but for some reason he just can't essentially get the job done.
Well, and I don't know if we're supposed to take this from it, but the serum that he was injected with, Erskine talks about how it amplifies everything that's within you. So if you're good, it makes you better, and if you're bad, it makes you worse. So I don't know if we can attribute some of his character flaws, at least in part, to the flawed serum that he got from Erskine years and years before. Like that would at least explain for me why he runs away. Not why he's bad at logistics, but why he runs away every chance he gets. So that's what I took from it. I don't know why he's bad at managing resources, but I understand why he runs away. It's because that's what the serum brought out in him.
He was the worst StarCraft player. The serum made him the worst. Like, he's just terrible at managing resources.
Yeah, I mean, he can't turtle or Zerg rush, so just trash.
But yeah, so we talked about like the major bits of the movie, but I feel like we should go back a bit because this movie, like, they really did a good job. First off, I want to commend Chris Evans.
Oh yeah,
because he did an amazing job bringing this character to life, a character that a lot of people didn't really care about at the time. And he did a really, really good job endearing him into people's hearts. And also, I know it must have been very annoying that Marvel made this man eat like 50 steaks and work out for all eternity, only to CG his muscles away.
Yeah, well, they apparently they felt like they had to do that. I read a little bit about this. So Chris Evans was already buff when they started filming, and they tried to do a body double to do skinny Chris Evans, for like when Captain America's all wimpy and stuff. But they found that like body doubles didn't really match up with Chris Evans at all. Like they just like move differently and they look too different and all this other stuff. So they decided to try to CGI him, and I mean it kind of works, but it also kind of looks weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
I mean, I think they did a pretty good job. But at times it does look very awkward, especially because, I mean, it's just his head, like his chin is very big. Like he has a very big jaw.
Yeah, he has this very defined face on this like skinny little frame, and it's like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, after I first heard about what Chris Evans did to get in shape for this, I was like, man, I'm never going to look like that.
You'd have to have 2 jobs just to afford like the diet and gym time that he had to put in.
Yeah, he said he was almost throwing up from all the like chicken and lean protein they were making him eat and stuff.
He was eating like over 6,000 calories a day or something. That's just like,
because he's a naturally skinny dude. I mean, like he had already buffed up a little bit when he was the Human Torch in that Fantastic Four movie that nobody saw.
I mean, yeah, but that was 6 years before this came out. So
yeah, and I mean, like, but what I'm saying is he had already buffed up a little bit for that, so he's like a naturally skinny dude, and then he has to like buff way up for this.
Yeah,
I mean, he's gotten bigger with each movie.
Oh yeah, at some point he like, I don't know. They're just going to turn him into the Rob Liefeld Cap, like at some point.
Just give him all the pouches.
Just give him a pair of like 100 pairs of cargo pants and have him have shoulders the size of buildings. It's fine. Like,
and never show his feet.
You can't, because feet that size are absurd on a frame that large.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so I kind of want to get into that a little bit with the costume. Okay. So Captain America's costume is super iconic, and I love the fact, like, I love when they do this, and they've been doing this a lot with the Marvel movies, is the old costume throwbacks. So we get the classic Cap when he's doing the propaganda Bell's Bonds tour with the Cap girls. I don't know what they call it.
It's such a good part of the movie. Like it's exactly the kind of thing that they would do.
I know it's so 40s. It is
incredibly World War II USO. Like in any war movie you've ever seen, it is a thing that they like. It's a pure nostalgia play almost. Like it's not nostalgia for us, obviously, but it feels so right.
It's an American nostalgia.
Yeah. It's like apple pie.
Yeah. But like seeing the old costume and how at first he was like, man, I wanted to be doing more important things, and then how into it he gets. And he's like going nuts. He's hitting Hitler and he's, dancing around and doing his spiel. And then like they're going through the montage and the splash cut to him doing it in front of the soldiers. And it's just deadpan. They're like, bring out the girls.
Yeah, I really liked that scene actually. I mean, besides just it being funny because like, the USO used to actually ship like showgirls to war zones to make them perform. But like, it was also a good scene because like he had really had no experience to the war up until that point. Like, he had no exposure to it. I mean, he was doing his whole routine, and he was just going to do the whole routine again. And these guys were just so unfazed by it because they're jaded. They're over there, you know. It's just stupid. To
not only were they like they're jaded because they're in the shit. Like they had just lost so much of their unit. Like that. I don't know how much they said. Like the casualties for the battle, they just felt like they had just been torn apart. Mm-hmm. So there was no way that they were going to react well to his horse, you know, his pony show. Like what if they could just.
Actually, while we're on the note of like, because I just remembered that, you know, Tommy Lee Jones mentioned that they had lost a bunch of guys, were captured. Tommy Lee Jones being in this movie, I've never seen a movie where Tommy Lee Jones played anybody else but Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh yeah, he plays himself in the same way that like Will Smith is always Will Smith in every movie he's ever in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's so good. Like he's just really likable. I don't know what it is. Like he just has this weird charisma. Because during this movie, where he's like, he's walking down the line and all the guys are kind of like at attention. And he's like, "We got the best and the strongest men." And then he looks at like Steve and he says, "Well, you know, we'll get there." And I was like, there's a line like that. I can't remember the exact line. But
his comedic timing there is really, really good.
Like it was so much fun. I really like how. I don't know. I feel like they could have easily played him as kind of like a antagonist for Cap, but you know, I guess seeing his smarts and just watching him as a character, because after you have the scene where they're running track, or essentially like doing their cardio, or whatever, marching, you see Cap is like very behind, or Steve at the time, he's not Cap yet, but how Steve Rogers is behind everybody. He's like tired. He has asthma and everything, and they're showing like, oh, he can't keep up. And then he's like, hey, you know, whoever gets the flag at the top of this pole gets a ride back with Peggy Carter. And like all the guys are like, oh yeah, we want to ride with her. Ain't got to run no more. And then they all like trying to climb up and they can't. And then he just so like easily walks up to the pole, takes out the two like nails, and then just grabs the flag and then bounces. And I was like, that was great. Like it didn't overstay its welcome. It wasn't like a crazy scene. It just showed like, hey, I'm smarter than the average soldier. And it kind of plays into like the whole thing of why he was chosen to be Captain America.
Yeah, because he isn't really like the other soldiers, even though so much of his character is defined by him being a soldier.
Yeah. Also, we get, you know, I think we talked early on one of the podcasts about the Men in Black being in the same universe because it's a Marvel property.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, this is further evidence, right? Because Tommy Lee Jones' character is working with the precursor to S.H.I.E.L.D. So he clearly, when he retires from the military, he just transitions right into that the MIB part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like that's like definitely what happened.
Oh yeah,
I am more convinced of it than ever.
Oh man, so Rashad's gonna try to tie in Game of Thrones.
That's going on the corkboard right now.
And you're gonna do Men in Black in the MCU.
I mean, no, it's in my head canon. It's real. Yeah. When he left the military, he went to work for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Men in Black is the Men in Black are a deep cover, like really deep secret kind of part of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah,
running aliens underground and stuff. Yeah,
they're the only part that wasn't ever infiltrated by Hydra, which is why they're still around.
Still around.
Good head canon, man. I had something else I was going to bring up about that, but I forgot what it was. Oh well.
I guess we can run through it some more. I mean, a lot of those, I guess, earlier scenes in the movie before he's turning into Cap is him, you know, trying to be a soldier, trying to keep up with everybody, and showing everybody concept character. Because we get another good Steve Rogers moment where, what's the scientist names that creates the super soldier serum?
Erskine.
Yeah, Dr. Abraham Erskine, I think.
Yes. Where he's like talking about how he's choosing Steve to be the, you know, test subject for the super soldier serum. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, that guy? Really? And he was like, no, trust me, he's the guy that's going to be the right person for the job. So he decides to test him. And he takes a pin out of a, I guess, false dummy grenade that he just had sitting around. And he chucks it out at the guys and he says, grenade out. And everybody books it. And I mean, and you know, you see Steve jump on the grenade and tells everybody to get away, just to show like how great of a guy he is. But all I can say is, like, I wouldn't jump my ass on a grenade for nobody.
Yeah, man, that's what makes him Cap and everybody else just a soldier.
Yep. Actually, that scene kind of like, I mean, that is a great scene because it does show what kind of person, Steve Rogers is, what his character is like. But that box did not look like it was in any way supposed to be dummy grenades.
Yeah.
He pulled it out of a box of grenades. Why would you have a box of dummy grenades sitting there on the back of a truck? What the hell?
Hey, man, just suspend your disbelief. It's a movie.
I actually read something about guys jumping on grenades. Apparently, they have like a procedure now for how you're supposed to do that. Apparently, if you're going to jump on a grenade, you're supposed to do it while wearing your pack, and you jump back first, like your back down towards the grenade. Huh. And so you have a much higher chance of surviving it if it gets absorbed by like your pack, and it'll go into your back anyway instead of like your stomach. I mean, like people are always in the movies, I guess, jumping on grenades chest first. It's probably not a good idea.
I was thinking about that. I thought you were gonna say like the best way to do it is jump head first so that it ends quickly. And I was like,
the best way to do it is to swallow the grenade, and then when it explodes, you'll just like put out a little puff of smoke.
Yeah, your stomach will expand a little bit, and you just burp out.
That's worked in every cartoon I've ever seen, so must be true. Yeah. You know what we haven't talked about yet, which is a huge oversight, is Bucky Barnes.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I figured we'd get there. Yeah.
Okay.
We had to stroll around to the barns.
Yeah, but Sebastian Stan is really, really good as Cap's best friend. Like their dynamic, like you feel like they've been friends for a long time, and I don't know if they had known each other before the movie, but their chemistry is really, really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was actually kind of funny seeing and actually it kind of made me think like maybe they're hinting at there being a little bit of resentment between Bucky and Steve, but like when Steve went from being the wimp that Bucky looked out for to being like the big man on campus, and Bucky was kind of like in the background. But Bucky did seem a little pissed off by that. And I mean, it was funny, but I was kind of thinking like, oh, maybe this actually is supposed to like feed into a little bit of resentment between the characters. That dynamic did seem to exist somewhat in the Winter Soldier. But
and they give at least a one nod to that in the scene in the bar when Agent Carter comes in wearing that red dress. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talks to Cap about whatever they're talking about, and then walks away. And just for a minute there, Bucky says, "Oh, I was invisible that whole time. I feel like I'm turning into you."
Yeah, because I mean, even in that scene, like she walks over and she talks to Cap about dancing, and then Bucky speaks up. He's like, "Oh, so what time?" And then, or what you waiting for? And then she looked at Steve, and she was like, "The right partner."
Yeah.
And then they start conversing, and she leaves.
Oh yeah, he got curved real hard.
Oh, super hard. And then also there's a scene in the train before Bucky is lost to the cliff side, where him and Steve are both having sword fights in two different train cars. And then Steve takes out his giant guy with flamethrower. Oh no, it wasn't a flamethrower guy. It was actually like the laser rifle guy or whatever. And then he beats that guy, and then also gets into the next train to help Bucky out with his guy. And he was like, "I had him pinned down." He was like, "Yeah, sure." So it's like he's outclassing him with the ladies, and he's also outclassing him as a soldier. So it's just like, oh man, what does Bucky have now?
Yeah, and what you were talking about with costumes, Rashad, about how like they had the classic kind of corny, obviously stitched out of cotton costume, and they never got Bucky into the tight spandex and flared boots.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best.
Maybe if we see Winter Soldier in Black Panther, because he's being kept there in Wakanda, that we'll get that suit. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, in Wakanda, this is all we have for you.
We've got this bright red and blue spandex here. Go, man.
I was like, how come all y'all get the cool black suits? He's like, nah, this for you.
Yeah. There was something else I wanted to say about Bucky, but it's slipping my mind.
Oh, we get a tease at the Winter Soldier in this movie. When Cap is coming in to save the troops, like that were captured.
yes we do.
He's on the table reciting his code.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, I didn't remember this at all.
Oh yeah, I didn't even catch that this time around. But like, that's the sort of thing you wouldn't see unless like you saw the two movies like together. Man, that's nuts. Like
yeah, so I was like, he might have already have been indoctrinated with Hydra at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because I mean,
Hydra, trying to get close.
Hydra had already infiltrated the SSR, which was the group that made Cap in the first place, which means they probably certainly had infiltrated all levels of the regular military. So yeah, he may already have been compromised at least in some way.
The whole thing might have already started right there. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People just love to torture Bucky, I guess.
It's so rough to be Bucky.
I mean, yeah, it is like I get him feeling a little put out because he'd been good at everything, and then there was his friend, and now his friend is better at everything, and
he gets tortured by like 3 rogue governments too. So that sucks.
Yeah, it's a rough life.
Yeah, so another character we should talk a little bit about is Peggy Carter.
Oh yeah, I love Agent Carter. She's great.
Yeah, she is fantastic. Their relationship is so much more believable than Thor and Jane Foster.
We're gonna keep going back to Natalie Portman and Thor.
It's so bad. I had this conversation again today at work with our friend Timmy because he listened to the podcast and he was like, I shouldn't hate on her, and I was like, well, I wouldn't hate on her if the performance wasn't so bad.
And I know Natalie Portman can do better too, but like that's
the thing.
Like actually Natalie Portman's kind of bad about that in general, I guess. Like there's some movies where she just doesn't give a shit, like Star Wars.
Oh shit.
I don't know if that was all her there, but yeah.
Is she she's Padme?
Yeah.
What? There's
fuck.
no way you're just realizing this now.
I think I knew, but I had like a mental block or something.
You blocked it out because it was so bad.
Oh my god, she's so bad in that
movie. See, that's what I'm saying. Is like Natalie Portman's a great actress, but if she doesn't care, she'll just do it anyway and phone it in. Like she just won't give a shit.
Oh jeez.
Regardless of that, Haley Atwell as Agent Carter is fantastic.
Yeah, no, we keep.
No,
I was just going to say we keep mentioning actors in the MCU who really seem to be having fun with what they're doing. Haley Atwell really seems to have fun being Agent Carter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like their whole subtle flirtation, courting thing that they're doing back and forth, talking sideways at each other about finding dance partners is just, for lack of a better, it's just lovely. I don't know. I like that a lot.
That's good because she's English. That's what they would say.
Oh yeah, lovely. I guess so. Yeah, look at me.
And it really culminates to a very powerful scene at the end that kind of got to me. Granted, it might have been the midnight viewing time, but him having that final speech where he's like, I'm gonna have to take a rain check on our dance, and she's like, well, how about Friday? And he was like, you better be there on time, and he's like, yeah, I'll be there. It was just like,
man.
Actually, pick a slow song so I don't step on your feet, and then that's the last thing she ever heard him say.
Just cuts out. Oh. I was like, no.
That was a hard hitting scene, and actually, part of me is like, why did you agree to that, Cap? Why would you say, yeah, no, sure, I'll be there? That's lying, you know that.
Well, but they both knew it was a lie. Like it was the thing that they had to do to get through the moment because, he's doing the hero thing, and they know he's not coming back from it. But they had this pleasant little fiction that they had built up, and so they just leaned into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like that was their thing. Is always getting to that dance that they can never.
Yeah. It's instead of
achieve.
Couples say like they have a song for the two of them. They have a dance that they just haven't danced yet.
Yeah. So it's just really, really good. Like I really like the movie. I have my issues, but I had a lot of fun. That's what I feel like this movie was. It was just a lot of fun. A really nice period piece of a guy who wants to be a hero and fight for his country, and then he finally gets that chance, and he uses everything in his power to do everything he can to save people, even inevitably or seemingly giving up his life for his country. And it's just a really good story. I would just say that my biggest issues were just the Red Skull not being a little bit more active as a villain, and I kind of wish, this might just be a personal thing for me, like a small thing, but I wish that they had like a training montage. Because I feel like he got the super soldier serum, and he's jumping out of planes, and he's vaulting over cars, and he's shooting guns like a super marksman. And I was like, that's all fine and dandy. That could be explained away. Like, okay, the super soldier serum enhances your agility and your reflexes and your sight and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of wish they just had like a montage, like, look at all the things that he can do now. Look at him training to understand his powers. Because you get that scene of him like just getting injected with super soldier serum and he's chasing the spy. And he's flying into storefronts and running in front of cars and doing all kind of crazy stuff and leaping over fences trying to get a feel for his newfound strength. I kind of wish they would have, had a scene where they could hone on it rather than him just automatically going to super secret spy missions, saving 500 guys that were trapped in a Hydra base by himself.
Actually,
I mean, to be fair, like there was plenty of time off screen, like when he's doing the USO stuff, for that to have happened. And I didn't necessarily feel
that's exactly what I was going to say. Well,
yeah.
I guess if I was making the movie, the way I would have done it would be, he spent, I guess they don't really define how long, but he spent a while doing the USO, like selling bonds, support the war effort, that kind of thing. He spent a while doing that. And that was after he got the super soldier serum. That was after he had superpowers. So you mean like he was just doing that as a day job and then he just went home and like ate TV dinners or whatever? Like he was probably trying to test out these powers. That's how I would have done it if I was making the movie. I would have like tried to put some stuff in there with him like testing himself and training himself while he was doing that USO stuff, kind of like mix it in. Because you can't be satisfied having that power and then just doing that. Even if you just do something on your own, he would have tried it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I really wanted is just a little scene showing him just working on some things. Yeah. And I thought it would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we were supposed to assume that he had gotten some of that in the basic training or whatever there at Camp Lehigh.
Yeah.
Before he got the serum, but I don't know for sure. Plus, he wouldn't have been going home eating TV dinners because he was still in the military. There was no way that he was just gonna. He was definitely going to go back to some barracks somewhere, and they were going to have him do PT or whatever. So it didn't bother me that we didn't actually see him train.
But yeah, one more integral character to this whole shindig is Howard Stark. We finally get to see a younger version of him. We've seen the older version in the Iron Man movies, but now we get to see him in his prime. And Dominic Cooper does a really, really good job of hamming it up as the, I don't know, millionaire, probably philanthropist. I don't know.
At the time, probably millionaire.
Yeah.
He was, I think his character is supposed to be a pretty like direct take on Howard Hughes. Am I right in assuming that?
I've heard that as well. I don't know for sure, but I think that rings true to me. I like the musical cue that they use. The music that's playing when we see him at the fair they're at is the same music from it's in Iron Man 2, the video that Tony has of him.
Well, actually, this isn't in my notes, so maybe I missed this, but like when they went to that fair thing, like the world of tomorrow type thing, was that supposed to be a Stark Expo? Because
yes,
that was.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was such a big. Yeah, that was such a big thing in Iron Man 2 was Tony starting up the Stark Expo again. So I think that'd be a nice little nod to that.
Yeah, it was a Stark Expo, and there was a small nod. I don't know if they put it in just because Chris Evans was in the movie, but that red suit in the glass case that you see, and there's a panic shot over the whole thing. That is the a version of the Human Torch suit from early in the comic days.
Oh well, yeah, because the original Human Torch before Johnny Storm, he fought alongside Captain America with like Dum Dum Dugan, in World War II.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool nod.
Yeah, that's what that suit was. So.
Oh wow! No, I didn't see that, but that's cool.
But I totally forget his name, but
I can't remember his name either.
Torch. So we got a nod to the original like World War II Human Torch, and we got the what are they called? The Howling Commandos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No Submariner still.
we don't need that wet fish boy. They've done just fine without him.
I bet he shows up eventually. I bet that happens.
In like 15 years when they run out of ideas.
Phase 19 is the Namor story.
Oh man, I can't. I'm not.
But I mean, I think that they might actually. I mean, because in all honesty, he was a part of the Fox Marvel deal, so he was with the Fantastic Four, so they couldn't use him at the time. But now that deal is going through, and Marvel's taking a huge load of Fox's movies and TV, they have the rights back to him apparently. So who knows? Maybe we might get Namor.
Yeah. Oh, can we talk about a thing? It's not really related to the movie per se, but the Valkyrie plane jet thing that Red Skull has is based on a prototype that the Germans were building at the time.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Called the Horton HX. No, I guess it's 18. Horton H-18. There was a blended wing stealth bomber.
So they actually based. So you're saying they actually based some of this stuff on like actual Nazi projects or something?
Yeah, prototype stuff that never got fully built. And the thing about this plane, it wasn't until very recently that I guess they found some good blueprints and stuff of it, and they were able to model it in software and realize that if the Germans had actually built the thing, that they could have gotten as close to England as 80 miles before they were even detected by radar, which is about 8 minutes from London at that point by flight. And if they had it would have changed the course of the war, which I think is a nice nod to the fact that he was trying to bomb the whole world with it.
He was going to change the face of the war. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we also talk
about... Which is also a good nod to his face being all messed up.
Changing the face, air quotes, of the war.
Leave dad jokes to people with kids, man.
Wait, can we also talk about how the Red Skull has the sickest car?
I was like, is this the longest car in history?
It is perhaps my favorite old school movie car, besides the car that belongs to the captain of the Nautilus in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
That was a long ass car too. You just like long cars.
What the hell?
I don't know. I have a thing for old, really long cars.
There's a little bit in this movie where like they're fleeing the base after the Red Skull decides to self-destruct it, and the Red Skull's like flying out of there, and Zola's like, where will I sit? It only has one seat, and Red Skull tosses him the keys, and he's like, don't scratch it, and like for a second, Zola looks like scared because he's not going to get to fly out of there, but then he's like, well, I got the fucking car. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And he looks so happy to have the car.
Like awesome car with like fucking nitro boost and shit. And I was like, what?
Man, I want a super secret Nazi scientist car. That looks badass.
But yeah, that car is great. I love it a lot.
It was ridiculous because that final shot with I was about to call him Agent K, but Peggy Carter, Tommy Colonel Chester Phillips, and Cap when they're trying to chase up to Red Skull's plane as he's leaving, and it's just like this one shot like that shows the whole car in its full length, and I was like, this looks ridiculous.
It's like the length of an aircraft carrier. Like you can land a plane on it. Like
this is a little aside, but Rob, you've seen Redline, the anime movie.
Oh, yes.
It looks like one of those cars, how they elongate and stretch every time they, like, boost.
That's because but in that movie, that makes sense because they're putting car steroids into this thing has no, like, excuse to be that ginormous, but it's awesome nonetheless.
It's ridiculous. But, yeah, so, that final scene, I guess, we talked about it briefly, of Cap's final moments before he crashes the plane. One of the things that I did want to talk about, which was kind of goofy in that fight, is when he's in the ship and he sees all the bombs. They just have like the names of every city like written on it. It's just like, is that necessary?
Well, it seems weird, but there is some precedent for that in real life too. That on some bombing runs, like pilots stuff, like they would write messages on bombs to people that they were going to drop bombs on. So there's some that actually happened. Maybe not names of cities, but like people from this town say hi or whatever.
I think they actually did write Hiroshima and Nagasaki on those.
Oh, did they?
They did.
Okay, well there you go. Then even more sense.
What do you expect? Like the guy that's standing under the bomb right before it hits him in the head, he's going like, "Oh fuck you guys!" Just blows up.
Actually, I liked how in that scene, all of those guys had guns. But nobody pulled a gun in that bit because nobody wanted to shoot a gun with the bombs all there. So
yeah, you're in a room full of bombs. Like, no, thank you. Also, all those guys being like, there's 6 dudes in the whole plane, and like a bunch of several of those little flying pod things. Why were there so few stormtroopers on the plane that he could just take them out like.
I think the Red Skull had to take off on short notice. He only had only had a base crew.
Also, can we talk about how Cap hard murders like all of them? He just chucks them all out.
Well, actually, even though the Marvel movies have not really shown like killing or murder, they tend to be kind of family friendly. But like Captain America is a soldier. They were fighting. They did kill people.
It makes total sense. It's not awesome.
It's not. I mean,
he was rocking a gun.
Yeah,
he was rocking that 1911 like just.
I was gonna say.
And the scene where he hijacks the dude's plane, like he's on top fighting the other guy, and the other guy's flying, and then he starts flying up, and then one guy loses his grip and falls into the blaze. I was like, yo.
Oh yeah, they actually showed blood spray on that one. I was like,
yeah, I was like, Marvel, whoa.
They showed more blood in this movie than they had anything else. Like they showed blood.
I mean, I guess it is World War II. But...
Yeah, when Dr. Erskine gets shot, he's like coughing up blood. The Hydra assassin guy, there's blood when he gets shot. Like this is the bloodiest by far, at least in Phase 1 of all of the Marvel movies.
Yeah, which makes total sense. That's why I feel like, and I don't want to get into this too much, but how Marvel gets it right with their characters and DC doesn't. Like, if Captain America's a soldier, it's in World War II, obviously, yes, he will have a gun. He would shoot people and he would be killing because it's war.
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense for his character. He knew from the start what he was doing. He knew that he wanted to go to war to kill some Nazis. And then on the other spectrum, you have Batman v Superman, where it's just like, I'm Batman, I'm branding people and flipping cars on top of people. It's like, wait, where did this come from? It's like, well, I'm Superman, and I'm snapping necks and flying through buildings with no regard for human life. And I was like, okay, I guess these are the characters I was supposed to like.
Get dunked on, DC.
Actually, there's a good bit in the beginning of the movie where Steve Rogers talking to Erskine, and Erskine asks him, "Oh, so you wanna kill people? You want to kill Nazis?" And he's like, I don't really want to kill anybody, but I want to help people. I want to protect people."
Yeah, he goes, "Yeah, I don't want to kill. I just don't like bullies."
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. Like we've talked about Erskine more than just. It's amazing how much he brought to for the short time he was in the movie. He was so important. They
characterized him very well because he is, the genesis of the whole Captain America legend, and I thought it's interesting how you do in movies Germans during World War II, not Nazis, but just Germans, because he has that line in there about like people forget that the first countries the Nazis invaded was their own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I thought that's a really well written line. I like that.
It is. It got me thinking. Captain America is really the first hero that like him becoming a hero and him being and like the villains he fights are not directly his fault or the fault of his family. Like, so, Hulk made himself. Iron Man has created all his own villains, although some of that is related to his father. Thor, like, did a bunch of stuff because he's an idiot and caused problems for himself. Cap is just like, he went and sought a fight to protect people, and that's how he became a hero. And so he's so different than all the other guys in that way.
Yeah, because Cap's story isn't the story of him becoming a hero. He's already a hero from day one.
Yeah.
Like, he has that mentality. He knows what's right, and he tries to do it to the best of his ability. It's just him given the chance to do the things that he needs and wants to do to help the world. And it's interesting.
I think that now that I've sat and thought about it a little bit, I think that is maybe why I didn't like him so much when I was growing up, is because, he's not as flashy, he's not as powerful, and he's always done the right thing. And when I was a kid, I thought I found that, less compelling. But I think it's a much better way to be a hero, is to just always be a hero, and then, oh look, you actually have some powers now.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying in the beginning with my like Captain America versus Superman thing, like, because that's part of the American dream, right? Is like to recognize the potential of the average person. You take the average person, you give them a chance, and through like their values and their work and their actions, just the way that they will rise to greatness if you give them the opportunity.
Yeah,
and that's what Captain America represents.
And they actually do that really well. Upcoming in Avengers, when Loki talks about like, some people just need to be ruled, and that one guy, I think it's in Germany, stands up and says, no,
Yeah.
Like it's just a regular guy being a hero, and like they've anytime that they've done that since Cap, like they've done it really well. Like they know their characters super well.
Yeah, that scene, like Cap swoops in, he's like, "Last time I was in Germany, and there was a guy asking people to kneel. We didn't get along."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really like going back and watching this movie. Hell, going back and watching all these movies, I have like I just realized like how good they were. And I feel like at the time I didn't fully appreciate it until like after the fact. We've been with these characters for, like 10 years now almost, and just seeing how well Marvel knew their characters and was able to get the characters down packed like so perfectly, like, even with the little minor flaws. The Phase 1 movies were always fun. They were always entertaining, and they always had that core message of like, these are the good guys trying to do everything they can to save people. They are heroes, and you're supposed to root for them because they're the good guys. And I really like that. They didn't really try to do anything crazy to edge up the characters. They kept some of the old stuff, like with the suits and everything, and paid homage to the history of the character. And they also modernized them for the time. And it's just like they did such a good job bringing a character that most people at the time would have totally written off. It's like, oh, you're gonna have Captain America? Like, really? Like, nobody cares about Cap. He's the Leonardo. He's the Cyclops. He's the guy who, yeah, he's the leader, and he's supposed to do everything right. But he's not interesting. He's not fun. He's not Wolverine. He's not Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Case in point, I am that person. Like when they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a Captain America movie. Oh, cool. I'm about it.
Yeah. No, as like I think it's like a generational thing, because when I was a kid, I liked anti-heroes a lot too. I wanted the guys who were kind of bad, kind of on the edge, but they were still heroes. And it's as you get older, I think, or maybe it's just a generational shift, because I think in general people are less looking for anti-heroes and they want more legitimate traditional heroes, I guess would be the way to put it. But like you want something that is more representative of values rather than the guy who doesn't really want to be a hero, but he just kind of gets put in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they look at certain characters like Wolverine or whatever, and it's like, that's the hero that I see myself that I could be. There's like, yeah, I'm a guy that just try to do good, but fuck it, I'm all for myself. But we need more Captain Americas.
Yeah,
absolutely do.
Totally agree.
I guess we should talk about the last scene.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like, Rashad, you're about to say that was a good note to end it on, but maybe we should talk about the stinger too.
Yeah, well, I did the bit where he wakes up after all this time, and they're playing that baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
I just really love that scene. Like I thought it was cool, like them trying to like kind of not have him freak out, I guess, like with this like simulation of 1940s. And I love how he immediately picks up where he's like, I was at that game.
Yeah, they didn't.
Where am I?
They didn't do their research. Like,
no, not at
all. And I hear that people actually do that sometimes with people who recover from comas. Like they'll come out of the coma and they'll try to like ease them into it by being like, what? It's still the 80s. You haven't been asleep for 30 years. But what I was going to say is, I'm going to talk about this more when we do Avengers and when we do Winter Soldier, but I really wanted, I get, because I'm not going to get it, but I really wanted there to be a movie where there was a big focus on Cap adjusting to modern day society, sort of like trying to understand everything that's changed, which is what they kind of did at the end of Avengers with him, like getting on the motorcycle and driving. It implied that he was going to drive around the US and like see this country that he's, been away from for so long. And I like that. I want to see more of that, but I don't think I'm going to get that movie.
Yeah, I think as much as you're going to get is his little notebook of things to check out.
I loved it. Yeah, that's why when we get to Avengers and Winter Soldier, I'm going to talk about that a little more. But like, I loved that little bit because I like the idea of Captain America rediscovering America.
Yeah, I will say that the one thing that's weird about this scene is the geography of it. Like he wakes up and he runs out of this room and he's like a block from Times Square.
Like that's true.
What is Shield doing with a weird safe house on Broadway?
Yeah, they had
Midtown Manhattan.
They had a ground level secret facility where in the middle of New York where they were waking up Captain America.
And specifically, like if you look at the street, he's on Broadway and runs from Broadway into Times Square. Like that's the worst place to have a secret facility to wake up a guy who's been unconscious for 70 years who's kind of powerful. What are you doing? It's
hard for me to imagine a secret organization doing anything on a ground floor in Manhattan. Like hide it better. Although I guess we got to suspend our disbelief because the whole point of that scene was Captain America realizes something's wrong. He runs out, and then it's this huge revelation. And where else are you going to do that besides? I mean, if they were doing this in the middle of the desert, it wouldn't have been a revelation.
Well, I think it would have made just as much an impact on him, if not the audience, if they had just done it in Brooklyn, where he grew up. Mm-hmm. But nobody is as familiar with Brooklyn as they are Times Square, and so part of it was for the audience, I guess, and part of it was for him.
Yeah, I think it was for the audience to like understand that he immediately steps out and he gets this huge, like, big revelation.
Yeah. That's fair. All that said, I like this a lot. It's my favorite of the Phase 1 movies, hands down. So.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about what my favorite out of Phase 1 was. Actually,
should we do that? I guess we should do that.
Actually, I mean, since we're doing Avengers next week, that's the end of Phase 1.
Well, actually, I think Avengers would be my favorite out of Phase 1 if that's not cheating.
I mean, it's not cheating, but it's the obvious answer.
Yeah, so barring Avengers, I would have to say Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
I love me some Hulk smash.
Well, you can have all you want, and I'll keep Captain America.
But yeah, so we're winding down Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're almost there to the first Avengers movie, which is going to be super interesting to go back into and dig into, because I feel like this movie, I mean, all of these movies that were leading up to this, and you finally get that huge payoff. And
I'm really looking forward to next week.
I can't wait. So, I guess we'll wrap this thing up and get prepared for Avengers next week, because I can't wait to watch the movie again. I want to thank everybody for listening. Again, if you're listening on iOS podcast app, always subscribe, leave a review if you can, show support to the podcast. If you want to keep up with us on social media, you can follow us on Twitter at 2AffinityCast. And I guess we'll keep this thing going till Affinity, guys.
All right, to Infinity. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.